Hey everyone, welcome to HYCU's webinar on busting common myths around backup as a service solutions. I'm Matt Berger from HYCU, and in this 30-minute session, we'll discuss the common myths about backup as a service and managing your cloud data. So our speaker today is Andy Fernandez, Director of Product Marketing at HYCU. Now, before we begin, I want to remind everyone that your lines have been muted. If you want to ask a question, please do so through the question panel. And let's just jump in here and I will turn it over to Andy to get started. And I'll be back at the end for any questions that you all have.
Thank you so much, Matt. I want to thank you, everybody. Once again, I'm Andy Fernandez, the Director of Product Marketing here at HYCU. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you being here. We'll be a couple minutes and hopefully you get some good insights out of this. So today's title is Busting Common Myths Around Backup as a Service. As we know in the technology space with the rise of digital marketing, there are so many terms that get thrown around. And a lot of assumptions get made, whether they were valid at one point or just because of FUD. And so it's really important for us to today in our agenda to be able to really define objectively what backup as a service is, talk about the history of it and what myths arose from that, right? What do people believe about backup as a service that was true, is no longer true, or maybe was never true? And we're going to do it in the context of how HYCU, as a backup as a service solution and data protection, is able to debunk these assumptions. After that, we're also going to provide a selection criteria, right? If you're an organization that is using an on-premise backup solution or a BaaS solution that you're not happy with, we're going to talk about what are the core key requirements, table stakes for a BaaS solution that can deliver the value that you're looking for. And then ultimately, we'll also summarize things with why HYCU is optimal for backup as a service. So let's get started. So when we talk about who HYCU is, right, we're an organization that is headquartered in Boston. I'm actually speaking here, visiting from the Boston office. We have more than 300 employees globally and growing rapidly. We pride ourselves on being able to deliver a product that is multi-cloud and hybrid cloud friendly. Everything that we do is purpose-built for the solution or the workload that you're protecting, whether it's on-premise, whether it's in the public cloud, or it's a SaaS application. Because if you think about it, a lot of organizations have taken multiple routes to the cloud. For some organizations, they've entirely lifted and shifted. Some people are running production in the cloud. Others have moved their DR. Some have adopted some SaaS applications. For some, it's very quick. For some, it takes time, depending on the maturity and the size of the organization. There is no right way to do this. So what organizations need is a partner that can not only help protect their data, but move their data when they need to, and to do it without data loss, and to do it quickly. And so that's why we pride ourselves on being able to enable a lot of these digital transformation and cloud strategies. And ultimately, we also pride ourselves on having a global presence with more than 3,100 customers and growing in more than 75 countries. You may have seen some very exciting announcements around HYCU and its investors, but we are backed by Bain Capital, Acrew, Atlassian, and Cisco Investments as strategic investors as well. And as I mentioned, we pride ourselves on the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud strategy, really being able to deliver a premier standard of data protection across all of those. And we purpose-built these solutions for them, whether it's Azure, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Office 365, but also on-premise, right, with VMware and Nutanix, Dell, and even additional cloud native workloads, not just VMs, but also containerized applications, but also enterprise applications like SAP HANA. So with that, though, let's talk a little bit more about the history of backup as a service, define it, and then we'll move on from that. So when we talk about defining backup as a service, if you do your research, most of the time, unless you speak to the analyst organizations, you're going to get a biased definition depending on the backup as a service provider that's providing that definition. But TechTarget provides a very accurate one, and that definition is that BaaS is an approach to backing up data that involves purchasing backup and recovery services from an online data backup provider. Instead of performing backup with a centralized on-premises IT department, BaaS connects systems to a private, public, or hybrid cloud managed by the outside provider. Now that's been the general definition, but when we actually talk about what is the true difference between having your own on-premises backup environment, backup appliance that you're controlling versus a BaaS service, here are the key differences. When you are what I would call DIY backup and data protection, you're doing everything yourself. First of all, you're estimating how many VMs, how many workloads and applications do I have to protect? And everything you do, you have to pay ahead, right? Whether it's per purchase or subscription, you have to estimate what you're going to use for a certain period of time. It also brings a lot of CapEx investments as well. But even when you understand, hey, maybe I need to protect 100 VMs or I need to protect 500 VMs, you need to adjust for capacity and you have to perform capacity planning to do that. That involves pretty lengthy sizing exercises as well. And once you're ready to get started, you have to perform the installation, the configuration yourself. And even after that, you are still responsible for maintenance, for patches, for upgrades, and really anything related to managing these backup appliances or agent-based software solutions and the infrastructure and the underlying storage around them. Brings a lot of responsibility, a lot of risk factors, especially when we talk about misconfigurations, when we talk about ransomware organizations specifically targeting backups. And ultimately, you also have to adjust for scale and growth. You'll see organizations that grow very quickly, and that means that they need to reinvest in these infrastructure and backup solutions. But how has that evolved? Well, the true promise of backup as a service, what backup as a service truly did, was able to say, instead of having to do everything yourself, why not use a service that you can pay as you go, only pay for what you use? You can still have complete autonomy and have self-service and perform operations that you need to in order to recover your data, protect it, get customized reporting, that type of thing. But a huge value add is that the promise is you don't have to do any maintenance. That's you're removing that error or that margin of error. You don't have to do any capacity planning. And ultimately, because it's using cloud technology, for some BaaS organizations, it's a private cloud, but for the more modern BaaS organization, it's the public cloud. And you're able to scale dynamically. If you have a work from home strategy, you're able to increase that very rapidly. And that's what backup as a service did. But with that came a lot of assumptions. There was a lot of myths that started developing around common areas, right? Around you have no data sovereignty, privacy, or security when you're using a BaaS service. You may not get all the capabilities that you get with your own enterprise backup solution, or maybe that you're not able to truly have a multi-cloud strategy if you're picking a BaaS provider. So let's talk about that a little bit. The first category, as I mentioned, data sovereignty and storage myths. And this wasn't a myth in the past. In the past, a BaaS service was an organization that says, hey, we are either building, co-locating, or purchasing storage, and we are operating this data center. You will be able to use our data center for your backup solutions. You will perform your recoveries, but it's our storage. We control your data. And that's not optimal, right? Because you're introducing compliance issues, you're introducing a new risk vector, and you're really allowing somebody else to manage your data. But that's one of the myths that developed. And the other myth, because of that, is if somebody's storing my data and doing everything for me, I don't have a lot of control. I may not have a very quick exit strategy. And these were valid assumptions in the past. But when modern BaaS organizations came in, especially when you look at what HYCU does as backup as a service, the reality is that you have 100% control and data sovereignty. And the most important reason for that is HYCU does not store your data for you. HYCU enables and manages or gives you the opportunity to simply perform backup operations on your underlying storage on-prem or in the public cloud. We do not touch your data. We do not access it. It is something that you completely own. And because you own it, you have full control and customization of what you want to do, the types of backup policies, the types of storage, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud that you want to use. And ultimately, what HYCU is able to deliver is flexibility. It's independence. It's all of the value of backup as a service, meaning you don't have to perform maintenance. You don't have to perform your patches. You're able to simply use and scale accordingly. And it gives you that control that you used to have with an on-premises solution, but with the ease and the scale and the pay-as-you-go model of the public cloud. So really what this comes up to is in the past, BaaS solutions required to handle your data. HYCU does not. Therefore, you have full data sovereignty and full understanding of where your data is and how you can control it. But let's move to the next one, right? This also comes along with being able to have somebody else store your data, which was true in the past. But the myth was when you're using a BaaS provider, you're introducing new compliance and security concerns. But the reality is, like we mentioned, HYCU does not store your data anywhere. You have 100% data privacy and security as well. because we don't store that data. But it's not just about that. It's Haiku is actually introducing additional, more robust security into your organization. It integrates with all the identity management solutions within the cloud. There's role-based access enabled. But most importantly, you have the option to perform backups on air-gapped and immutable copies in the public cloud as well. So what this means is not only do you have full control of your data, you're using a secure solution with the right identity management, with role-based access, and you're also having copies that aren't able to be touched. But the bonus of this is when you have an on-premise solution, you are responsible for configuration. You are responsible for updating. You are responsible for patching. What does this mean? Well, it means you're introducing risk. If you think about a lot of the high profile backup or a lot of the high profile ransomware attacks that we've seen, it's because a lot of people missed the basics. They made a mistake in the way they configured the backups. They made a mistake in the way they patched their servers. And what this led to was them getting their own backups encrypted. Haiku eliminates that risk of doing it yourself, of misconfiguring your backup. You simply install, the configuration is done for you. The maintenance, the upgrade is done for you. It's eliminating an additional risk vector. So not only is it as secure and compliant as using your traditional on-premise solution, but it's actually delivering a lot more of a safety net as well. But another big one comes with functionality, right? These solutions that we've had on premises have been being developed for decades, and they have very robust things that we can do, a lot of modification. But the myth here is when you think about what Haiku's been able to do with backup as a service, you have all of the core crucial capabilities that you have on premise. But the big piece here is when you think about your on-premise solution, on-prem, you have a lot of capabilities, but do you have those capabilities across the cloud? Can you protect your workloads that are cloud native, born in the cloud VMs, containers? Are you able to protect them with the same level of sophistication that you had on premises? The answer is no. So what you need is a solution that not only gives you the key table stake requirements for on-prem backup, but that also introduces core functionality in the cloud and without sacrificing simplicity and performance. And what Haiku is able to do, it's able to give you complete application protection and application awareness. You have incremental, forever, and dedupe backups. You have full recovery, whether it's of your VMs, your disks, or granular recovery of your folders and files. But a key aspect here that's a differentiator is that it's agentless, impact-free backup. Whenever you see agents, you have to associate that with complexity. With additional issues that you have to solve for, it's longer to install, longer to manage, and also has an impact on your production environment. So ultimately, Haiku is able to give you complete data protection with backup as a service, not only on-prem, but also giving you cutting-edge next-gen backup solutions for the cloud as well. And here is the final myth. Backup as a service is usually tied to one specific type of cloud. And that means that I'm not able to have a strong hybrid or multi-cloud strategy because I am locked into a BaaS vendor. And there's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of solutions that are tied to either a specific public cloud or they have their own private cloud. And it makes it very difficult to do things across clouds to even avoid a vendor lock-in. But as we mentioned at the beginning, we pride ourselves on being a multi-cloud organization, hybrid cloud. And that way, we're able to bust this myth of you don't have a multi-cloud strategy. Why? Because we're able to give you purpose-built native functionality on all of your specific applications and on their infrastructure. So that means that instead of having to realize how would we be able to adopt Azure if I'm dealing with a private data center, or how will we move to Google, with Haiku, you're able to make that decision. You're able to lift and shift to where you want to go, AWS, Azure, even Google Cloud Platform, but you're able to do that very quickly without vendor lock-in. Whatever works for you, whether it's an economic decision in the cloud or it's a technological decision, you're able to choose accordingly. And most importantly, we'll see this in a bit, you're able to manage it all in one place, which is a massive differentiator. So we've talked about a lot of these myths around data sovereignty, around security, compliance, around capabilities, and even multi-cloud, hybrid cloud strategy. So when you think about selecting backup as a service, it doesn't have to be Haiku, but when you're looking at, I know that I need this service, I know that I need to reduce the amount of labor, the amount of time, money, storage, and infrastructure we're spending on just keeping the lights on. And so when you're thinking about finding a new service, or even this is your first time with backup as a service, there are four key areas that you need to look for. And we kind of just discussed them. Number one, you need to ensure that you have complete data privacy and security. You cannot offload your data and give it to somebody else to manage for you. That is introducing too much risk. You need to retain complete control, but you also need a strong security framework. So it's not only can they provide me with ransomware protection, but is that solution inherently secure as well? So number one, data privacy and security is crucial. Number two, you still need complete data protection. You can't sacrifice your recovery time objectives, even your recovery point objectives, for the sake of moving to the cloud or for the sake of moving as a service. You should demand the same, if not more accelerated SLAs. This means backup and disaster recovery, not just to the cloud from on-premise, but in the cloud as well. And instead of just thinking about things from a VM perspective, you need to look at your data protection from an application perspective to make sure that you're consistently recovering your applications. That's crucial. And ultimately, never sacrifice RTOs. Look at how you're able to improve these RTOs, as we know what unplanned downtime and data loss can do to an organization, whether it's ransomware or your traditional deletions, corruptions, and things like that. So we know that you need to make sure that you find a secure solution that doesn't store your data. You don't want to sacrifice capabilities and speeds, but you also need to make sure that you don't pigeonhole yourself into a specific infrastructure, that you're not locked into a vendor, that you choose a service that allows you to choose the right cloud and the right strategy, whether it's multi-cloud or just hybrid for you. Make sure that this is a purpose-built solution. This is not something that has been slightly modified, still retaining the agent infrastructure, and then giving you kind of a mediocre experience in the cloud. You want something that was, for example, built for AWS in AWS versus an on-premise solution that's been patched to protect those workloads. You really need to demand native purpose-built solutions here, because you also want to be able to leverage all of that native cloud functionality as well, especially when we're talking about things like elasticity, dynamic scale. And the last one, as we mentioned, storage agnostic. This one really applies to everything from security to your hybrid cloud strategy and complete data protection. And I can't stress this enough, is always pick the public cloud, always pick somewhere where you are responsible and able to handle your storage, and you're not giving access to somebody else. You should get all the benefits of BaaS, but you should not remove your ability to control your own destiny with your data. So this is a key selection criteria. There's a ton of really good information that the analysts provide, but based on our experience, based on our years in the industry and data protection, we see these as critical backup as a service criteria. So when we talk about what HYCU can offer, we explicitly talked today about backup as a service because that's crucial, but it's way more than that, what you're able to look for. When you look for a BaaS solution, it's not just about, can I recover my files, but it's about, can I deliver disaster recovery to the cloud, in the cloud? Am I able to have a multi-cloud strategy? And what does this do for ransomware? And we've talked a lot about this already, but HYCU can offer you diverse platform support, right? Agentless, impact-free backup. I'm talking about one-click backup, DR, and mobility to the cloud. You want to be able to migrate to the cloud very easily. A lot of solutions can help you protect in the cloud, but they don't help you get there. HYCU is able to get there, help you get there very quickly. And ultimately, you need native protection, as we mentioned. That's part of the criteria. That's something that we hold ourselves to. We have to make sure that we use native solutions as well. And ultimately, we know that the severity and the volume of ransomware attacks continue to grow. This is one of the few industries where in cybersecurity where the scale of innovation is on the side of criminals. And organizations, especially on the preventative side, are always playing catch up. So you know that you're going to have to use your backup, your DR solutions in order to recover at some point. It's not a matter of if, but when. And so you need to make sure that when that happens, not only are you able to protect your data to make sure that even your backup software is safe, but that you can also recover quickly and avoid a lot of the long-term damages that really come with lengthy recoveries as well. And ultimately, still a core value out of backup as a service is to simplify data protection. Throughout decades, organizations have continued to grow the resources and the requirements required to keep the lights on, to simply be able to remain available and have your data accessible to you at any point in time. But this is keeping the lights on. What about your digital transformation strategies? What about accelerating development? All of these initiatives that are as critical and building the business. you need to reduce the time that you spend keeping the lights on. And that's what HYCU is able to do. It's a one-click backup. It takes 2 minutes to recover. You can deploy it, literally deploy it in 3 minutes, and it takes a couple minutes to truly learn. It's intuitive, it's easy. I can teach relatives to do it without any issues. And everything that we do has a 100% focus on application, not just the files, not just the VMs, but 100% application focus, which is a critical requirement today. And ultimately, as I mentioned, it's not enough that you're able to provide backup services natively to all of these platforms, whether it's on-prem with VMware Nutanix or in the public cloud or even a SaaS service. But it's that you're also able to consolidate the management of them. If you think about in the past, organizations inherit all types of tools. You had your tool to perform traditional backup on-prem. You probably had a tool for DR on-prem and then moved to DR2 cloud, and then you inherited a backup tool for something like Office 365. And now you've got all these tools, all these interfaces that have their own renewal cycles, their own complexity. Our goal is to consolidate all of that into one single location, one place where you can visualize your entire workloads and be able to perform operations there. So you have application consistent data backup, migration, and DR in one place, one interface, and complete visibility, right? I think people refer to single pane of glass and everybody kind of gives them the side eye when they hear that, but this is a true single pane of glass for all of your protected workloads without sacrificing the fact that they're all purpose built. So this is a crucial area to really provide data protection and deliver true SaaS that doesn't store your data. So with that, I really want to thank everybody for their time. There's so much more that we can dive in here, not only from a technical perspective, but also from a total cost of ownership perspective. And so what I urge you to do is to download this ebook. It's called Implementing Backup as a Service into Your Hybrid Cloud Data Strategy. There's 10 key factors to consider. We really take this webinar that we've done today to the next level. So there's a free ebook download. The links are in the chat. But also, there's nothing better than simply trying the solution yourself. And the reason I always do this is it's that easy to use. If you go and you register for it, you'll receive an email. You'll be able to access the solution, and you'll be able to truly see what I mean when we talk about 1 minute backup, 2 minute recovery, 3 minute deployment. It's that easy. I just urge you to try it. But I noticed that we've got a couple of questions in the chat. So I want to make sure that we address this. And with that, I'll transition over to Matt.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for the great talk. I know we all learned something. I did, for sure. And like I said, the best way to kind of bust those myths is to just jump in and try it, right? And HYCU's got a great way for you to do that. So we do have a few questions here on things you touched on briefly. So you mentioned that HYCU is agentless. How does that work then without agents?
So once again, because it's a native solution, because it's operating using the inherent solutions that the public clouds and the on-prem provides, it is agentless. A lot of organizations, right? When you think about a lot of these tools that use agents, they start within one platform. And instead of building for each platform that they want to protect, they kind of want to extend. And then you have to build out agents in order to configure and protect these. So ultimately, instead of doing that at HYCU, we've spent years truly developing purpose-built solutions for each of the platforms that we've talked about today. And that gives you an impact-free backup. The stigma with backup and snapshots for years has been that they are too disruptive. So you can only do a daily backup. And a lot of organizations have talked about that. Here, they're impact-free and they're agentless. So it creates simplicity, everything from the configuration to the recovery itself.
Great. Thank you for adding a little bit more color to that. And then the next question we have is around AWS and whether, someone using AWS has complete access to all of the backup and data protection capabilities that BaaS and HYCU in particular offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen a lot of excitement around AWS, and that's available. So if you look at the trial link, you're able to go and try our AWS solution. I'm a huge fan. I've played around with it myself, and you're able to truly leverage all the value add of AWS, right? From IAM to the dynamic scale that they provide, and really being able to deliver protection for your EC2 workloads. So I just urge you to try it. Like I said, I think I can speak here for 30 minutes on why this AWS solution is so amazing. But I think there's nothing better than everyone in this audience to go and download it themselves.
Don't worry, we will have another webinar where Andy has 30 minutes to talk about AWS.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so look forward to that in the future. And you can also find these on the marketplace, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. So if you're in those marketplaces, check them out there as well, or try the free trial. All right, well, those were all the questions we have. So I want to thank Andy for sharing all these insights, and I want to thank our audience for joining us today. Hopefully you found some inspiring words to kind of get you excited about backup as a service, as an option for your organization. And we really hope to see you on a future HYCU webinar. So without further ado, Andy, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thanks, Matt. Take care, everyone.